Awesome. So we are live. Welcome, everybody. As everyone's tuning in here, we're just going to make a couple little intros about what we're talking about and how things are going to get moving along this live. So if you're joining us on YouTube or LinkedIn, give us a follow, like, share, all those things. If you guys could knock this message up for us, that'd be awesome. So just do a repost, something like that. And we're going to ask you a couple times throughout that to do it because we like to get these messages out. We're talking about something that's going to radically change the world over the next 2 years, which is AI, but specifically sales implementations and what those mean and where the market's going and how it's going that way. I'm the nerdy type of guy. My name is Jordan Russ. I'm the CEO of Set to Close. I'm here with our CRO, Julio, and we're just going to be diving into these topics today through and through. And so the reason I say I'm kind of nerdy is, hey, I spent my entire holidays, even on the beach in Mexico, reading books on AI sales integration from the top leaders on the planet. I just sit there and listen to the best podcasts. And I also sit there and read and figure out what papers and how things are moving and how people are conceptualizing the future for our industry and why people are going to move in certain ways. So who are Set to Close? So you guys know, as we get into this, we work primarily with B2B companies in the marketplace, mainly in manufacturing and distribution. So we really understand consistent large scale supply chains and how to sell within those mid-market to large enterprise spaces. And this is to help your business along. So if you're a key leader within those, whether it's a regional framework, a national framework, or a global framework, we're going to nail down some things that are really going to give you a competitive edge or where the market's moving in 2024. And to say there's going to be a little bit of change is an understatement. Numbers came out, I think it was called from Ipsos, and they were asking companies, how much percentage of your staff are you going to lay off because of AI? And in 2024 alone, the number that came up was 30%. And that's just chaotic, right? So people are going to have to re-engineer, reschool, redo what they're going to do. And so that number just came out. So you can imagine like a 30% shift in workforce when you need hundreds of programmers before. Now one person can be using these AI models to program very extreme things, no code sort of methodology. So this is moving more towards the realm that people were imagining. It's just taking a little bit of time to get there. So it wasn't an instant chaos, but this is what I imagine is going to be the year of chaos, election year, AI going crazy, doing new things, the global order kind of shifting a little bit. So there's a lot of changes in 2024. So how do we use AI to go ahead of it? And we're going to ask a lot of questions today. So Julia, I know you had a couple things that you want to start off and say hello to everybody, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. Appreciate it. And as you mentioned with AI, I mean, I've been just floored by it. Like I've been using it at a small scale, in my opinion, but I am excited for this year. I'm very excited to see what develops, what's going to come out, and the speed at which technology is developing and AI is developing is absolutely crazy to me. To see that like curve go so far and up and to the right, it's just insane, right? Like seeing sales change over the last 2, 3 years more than I had in like 20 years previously. And it's no joke, right? Every single aspect I think of sales is going to be touched some way, shape, or form, right? Whether it's your go-to-market strategy that's going to be, driven by some AI decision making, whether it's your assistants that everybody kind of needs now in today's day and age to help them out with all these pieces of technology that sometimes integrate and sometimes don't. But meeting assistants, something I've been using lately, which has been super helpful. Very awesome. Helps me make decisions, helps me when I'm not necessarily completely woken up and had my cup of coffee in the morning to get things going and make the right choices on tasks in the morning. Sales coaching, right? That's a big one. That was one of the biggest ones that I personally saw coming from sort of a trainer background and in the education space within sales. But sales coaches are a game changer. So now reps can get trained or advice or coached on the fly, and you can scale it where you used to have one, manager who can only listen to calls and only give so much time to each and every person. Now everybody can get advice coached at the same time. It's a game changer there for sure. And, everybody knows about the content pieces, the content marketing pieces from AI. They're helping content writers out. And that's something that we'll have to talk about too, is what's going to happen with that. Can everybody continue to create AI generated content? How much will it get penalized? what does Google do with it, and what does LinkedIn do with it, and all that fun stuff. But CRM as well, a big one for us over at Set to Close for sure. Working with sales teams, tuning their CRMs up, making sure that they're working optimally. And a big piece of that is AI. How are they going to come in and work within a CRM to produce models, to make accurate predictions, to make recommendations, and just generally reduce the time that's required for data analysis. It's going to be exciting to see. And the relationship building, and that's the one piece that we'll see how it goes, but the prospecting and relationship building part, which I'm sure we'll touch on today as well. How is that going to look when you're getting a phone call from an AI? And is it going to be passing itself off as a human? Is it going to be able to handle objections, or is it just simply going to be just like another voice on an answering machine, right? So all those things are on top of mind for me, and I think they're very exciting. And I'm strapped in and ready to go for this year to see what happens, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of changes coming, and you mentioned a lot. So I want to digest this slowly over this conversation, and let people know that how do you handle this, or what to expect in what short order. So I think the big year of change and how things are going to mobilize themselves is this. First off, as a salesperson, you're going to have to be intertwined with technology more than any other position. So you're essentially going to be the modern cyborg. You're going to be someone who has to be heavy reliant on technologies for automations, for reach outs, for reading trends. You're going to have to be at the top of everything. So things are going to change immensely. So I'll give you some prime examples that we've had to add in. We don't have time anymore because we're going through so many different people, and we have to handle probably 3-4 times more contacts now to bring forward the opportunities that we need. So to do that, I have technologies, AIs that read people's personalities online, that tell me who's going to be in the meeting, what that buying group's composed of, and what to say and what not to say. And that just pre-populates in my email and in my CRM client before a meeting. And that makes, as an account executive, right, which I work as a lot of time, even in my own company, that allows me to save that tremendous amount of time on research, right? So that's all done for me. We can pre-populate those. We can automate them within the CRM, tell about the company, who's on the call, why they're on the call, what they've done in the last year, growth, how much they're growing. We can suck all that in between like LinkedIn, and we can get it from like Zoom Info, Apollo's, things like this. And at the same time, we're getting the info from these new AIs that are reading profiles. A lot of things are changing. And this is, do not go with this, your company will fail. It's just a question of how fast. People are going to have to shift all the legion or alliances, because the people who are moving, and it's like a rocket. It's not like a boat that's going out to harbor and maybe can catch out. This is like a rocket ship, and I don't think that's what a lot of people are grasping. So I want to give a little insight into what's coming in 2024. In maybe 18 months, it's 12 to 18 months, this will roll out in a quite high degree, will be what we call the AI sales manager. And what this will be is, imagine a subset that can monitor all your data, all your actions, all the replies to those actions instantaneously within your CRMs. And I'm talking the sophisticated CRMs, HubSpot, Salesforce, Dynamics, or NetSuite, things like this, really sophisticated CRMs and or ERPs. They'll be able to detect what's happening and then make suggestions and categorically even change sequencing to adapt to a market based on salespeople's actions. So you're no longer going to need this VP of sales making strategic level decisions, because everything's going to start to get mapped almost perfectly towards those client mixes using AI. Now that's super dangerous, but at the same time, it's very exciting. So you're going to see a rise in a couple things. And this is just my hypothesis at the moment, but it's where things are trending. So the first thing is, sales management will turn into old fashioned, rah, work with the individual, master the mind, master the talk track, the relationship piece will go a lot more. But what that's going to require is less time for managers doing data tasks like they were locked into before. We always know there's two types of managers, ones who are good with people and ones who are good with data. The good with data are going to be dead, because data is going to be provided perfectly in equation, and it's going to be monitored and suggested to them, and they just have to be able to read the market nuances and trends to intertwine with them to make good, intelligent decisions. The other side, though, the people side, is going to be accentuated to the largest degree that it ever has. How do we keep people motivated in this world with so much noise, right? Where, everyone per capita wealth wise is increasing and increasing and increasing, and everyone's living in more opulence than they ever have before. You think just 100 years ago, an average person's living better than a king or queen did. And so that's pretty amazing at how we're upping our lifestyles. So how do we keep people motivated? How do we coach them correctly? How do we keep them from turning around in our companies? Because people are the key components. This is going to be a sales manager's new role. And this might get adopted into the next phase of it, which is a lot more fractional management, where you're hiring a company like Set to Close, for example, asking for a fractional manager to spend 10 hours a week in a business versus hiring a full-time person to be in the business and working with those people, because it won't be as needed. As the CEO or main leader, COOs, you're going to be able to make operational sales decisions right off your dashboard, because your dashboards are perfect and your data is immaculate. And you're going to be able to see things that you haven't seen before. Now, this is what I mean. It's not a time for apathy, because if you don't have those things coming into this new year, you're not in the right architectures. There's a big, like, warning, Will Robinson warning. Now, Julia, my question to you in terms of this, because you worked across spectrum in marketing and everything under the sun, and you work in fractional management on a day-to-day basis with a bunch of different companies, is what are some of the possible warning signs that you're being outcompeted because you haven't taken action? What are the things that the market will tell you to say, hey, it's time to get up and go and start looking at these new phase of technologies? Is there anything that you've seen across the board when you're first entering a company?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's generally you get left behind, right? You start seeing things slip on a number of different areas, right? When your competitors are making split-second decisions based on data and based on like trained AI that's able to tell them what to do with historical data with no number crunching, and they're moving so fast, like the speed of light. And you start to see all of a sudden a company not do so well, and all of a sudden you track them over time, over quarter by quarter, and you start to see no growth whatsoever, and previously it was exhibiting growth. So that slowness of growth, that feeling that the competitors are coming up should be pretty evident these days if you're not jumping on it, because it's just so astronomical, the change in the difference between trying to go at it alone and figure things out with just uh, the team, so to speak, versus leveraging these tools, because they allow companies to scale quick, they allow companies to move fast, and you just notice yourself in day one being a market leader, and next month all of a sudden, you know, you're barely visible in the online space, barely visible to your customers, and the competitors have moved completely past you. So some of those signs, to me, it's that's a bigger one, of course, and it doesn't happen right away. But again, you start to see people leave the company. You start to see things happen because people aren't hitting their quotas, because the competitors are, you know, crushing them, because they're making decisions. They're making AI-based decisions. They're prospecting with AIs, knowing when to reach out, what to reach out with. Content's being put in their lap instantaneously based on a signal that gets placed out online, and they reach out with it. So these things start to happen. You start to lose your top performers. You start to lose. You got to pay more for them, and then that's the catch-22. Is all of a sudden now you start sinking because of that reason. So those are some of the signs I've seen. I know there's a number of others, but yeah, it's an interesting day and age, and companies have got to change and adapt, like you said, and get on board, because there's not a lot of time here to think about it, because it's moving a lot faster than any other movement that we've ever seen in history.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And one of the things, and I just want to throw out there, if you're watching this right now, if you guys could repost, throw a like up, allow it to get out there, because we're doing a series now. We're going to do this a lot more, and we're going to have a lot of different people on here talking about these topics in big ways, and we're going to be doing deep dives over the future here. So if you're watching this, please give it a like, give it a repost, and a comment down below about some topics you'd like us to explore and different things like that. That would be awesome. Now, within this innovation lifecycle, I want to explain what do we see. Most mid-market companies, small mid-markets, are composed of a small series of customer, and they're not very good at acquisitions. So let's say your basic 25 million to $100 million company might be composed of 12 to about 100 customers. And they're not really good at acquiring new customers. They're good at keeping their current ones. But the competition with the innovation and AI and how things are going to move is going to cause a lot more customer churn unless you're keeping your value proposition up to date. And even if you are, the market's going to shift. And so, and how things are done is going to shift. So you have to get good at client acquisition again. And so many companies for a decade, 2 decades have been living where they don't have to do that as much. It's not the prime focus. Client acquisition isn't the prime motivator. It is now. It is now. You cannot be a stagnant company, or what we call kind of like a zombie in the market, like just making your bills but have to borrow. We've heard that term a lot, but they're saying that 80% of companies could be some form of zombie due to AI. And that's huge. So when you look at Pareto's law, 20% are to make it 80%, and you're like, hey, that's free market, that's movement, that's XYZ. That's also an immensitude of change on a society when you have that many companies flipping and things like that. And we have to look at social dynamics and how things are going to move. So as a company owner, you want to instill, or a leader, you want to instill, how do I show our people how we're going to lead them to the promised land? We're going to stay alive. Their jobs are going to be safe because everyone's feeling the turbulence. And the way is adaptation now, putting in systems that can grow with you in perpetuity, having the right CRMs, the right ERPs, having the right pieces to add to your, let's say, architecture or your tech stacks to be able to grow with you. What companies are cutting edge? Which ones aren't going to make it? How do you select the right partners? Man, these are questions we hear every day and all the time. And it's like, at the same time, as is it too much to chew on, and people are going to have some dissonance in between the answers. So how do you build something that's actually usable and you can put in some form of frequency in your company? Gosh, like just talking about it, I'm like, that's a lot, right? That's a lot to solve and a lot to do, but we have to. There's no time for complacency at the moment. And anybody watching this, if you're complacent, you're like, I'm going to do it in 6 months. Good luck. Good luck. 50% of your customer base could be gone in 6 months because of how fast AI is moving and what that next step is and how that's going to look. Now, Julio, as you kind of listen to that piece, I know that there's some practical things. A lot of people are coming on here. How do I practically move? Like, hey, this is a lot to digest. I can't do a full system rebuild right now, or I can't think about an overall process. What are some cool, smaller tools that you are finding that are making some difference in your day-to-day efforts?
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. It's a great question because I'm looking at them every day and I'm just floored. And like as you mentioned before I jump into that, like the technology, like the life cycle is going so quickly now, right? Like if you think that you, like you said, wait it out for a bit, it's not going to happen because it's now you think you're going to be an early adopter, you think you might be you might be somewhere in the middle. Guess what? You're going to be pushed right to the end and you're going to be a laggard. It's not going to work. So that's why I'm personally looking into tools today that can help me when the time comes to jump into something bigger and look at how a full tech stack build out looks like. But right now, some of the tools that are helping me a lot have been, well, for example, my email AI reply tool, which is nice. Not going to throw out any names at the moment, but I am using it and it allows me to reply to an email by just a click of a button, and it matches the tone of the sender. Right. So if the sender is, let's say, a business or it's casual, whether it's business or whether you want to decline like a meeting, right? You click the appropriate tone, it takes that tone and formulates three separate emails. You get to choose the one that best represents the response that you wanted to put out there. And they're very, very well written. You can train it with your own writing. And it saves me probably an hour a day easily. And that's just what I've experienced with that specific tool. When you count some of the other ones I'm using, my time has been saved easily by 3 hours a day. At 3 hours back, do I use it wisely? I don't know. That's a different story. That's a question for another day. But yes, I am using the tool for email. I'm using the Humantic, which you put out there earlier, Jordan, which was the AI tool for personalities, which is fantastic. It's made communicate. That saves me so much time for researching. Like that stuff that I used to spend hours doing, looking up a company, an individual, trying to find out what their personality type was, maybe not even knowing until I got to a discovery call to try and suss it out to be able to determine, do I think this person's a this or a this, right? And the disc assessment. Now going in knowing, like almost like with 99% accuracy beforehand, it allows proper planning, things to be done in a way that I've never seen before from a preparation standpoint as well. Outside of that, content. I mean, as a marketing person and someone who puts out content quite regularly, that's been game change for sure. Like looking at just ChatGPT, for example, and a number of other ones, the ability for it to help you formulate content based on taking 2 months to write a white paper can now be, I don't know, maybe drilled down to maybe 2 weeks. If you're going to gather data and actually put in your own data sets, do some surveys, that might take a little bit longer. But that has changed the game for me substantially. And I'm just going to continue to add on to that like personal stack of mine and, until I feel that I'm as efficient as a cyborg. I think that's my goal.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what we are. So funny enough, internally, and everyone has access to this. So ChatGPT is the absolute game changer. And now with the launch of Google and Gemini and the different things that are there, or their Bard application, however you want to call it, there is a huge opportunity. But one of the big ones that we take advantage of is that there's these nodes that you can create, or GPTs for lack of better words, and they can learn a specific part of your business. So it's our sales strategy that we've conveyed to people in the past and things like that. It can learn your tactics of how to move through and then suggest to your salespeople, hey, you should use this in this inference and do this. So you can have a marketable action or response that drills down in like, for example, they did this with me. They took all my sales calls that we were allowed to upload. And then we put them in and it showed our salespeople, hey, what would Jordan say if we were in this scenario? He'd say XYZ in this order. And it allowed duplication of high-end account executive quickly, right? Julia, like when you first came into our organization, barely 6 months ago, you came up to speed so quickly because he was actually the founding guy who said, hey, we should do this. And we jumped in and started moving these before GPTs existed with another program. And we created this like Jordan bot, and he get all these answers out of it and be able to train his vernacular very quickly through my years of selling in the industry. So from a training perspective, from a duplication perspective, from understanding how to create collateral for, our market types, this has been an absolute game changer. And if you're not recording your meetings using like a Fireflies or a Fathom or, the different technologies that are out there, you need to, because this is going to allow you to upload all this thought, all this time that you spend and allow you to extrapolate what's good, what's working, what's not, why it's working. And so you brought to another topic, and this is bringing outside of GPTs and creation for strategy and content and everything. And you guys aren't into that, for $20 a month, you can have like advanced chat GPT. You go get it, you start exploring GPTs, upload your data and see if you can reproduce yourself to a 90% theorem. It's going to save a ton of time for you. Now, moving into where things are going from a sales management perspective, there's companies like Gong.io, Jiminy, SalesCan. These are all technologies, and there's more, right? There's like a bunch more, and we're evaluating all the time when new ones come to market, what's good, what's not. But they evaluate how you're speaking. And this is very important. How are your salespeople converting? What are they saying? How should you add a different nuance? What more example would work with this buyer persona? And these companies, these hyper data intelligent companies, based on rhythms of what you say, are starting to come out. Now, the difficult thing is deciding what fits for you. Gong's very expensive. SalesCan's fairly expensive. They're meant for teams of at least 5 or more. Jiminy's one that's smaller, but it doesn't have the strength of the other two. And then there's a multitude of others that are there. So how do you incorporate this into your regular business? Well, how Julia and I started this was we used a simple one like Fathom or Fireflies. Let's just track our rate of movement, right? Our rate of movement on how we're speaking, how fast we're speaking. Is it positive? Is it negative? What questions are we asking? Which ones are we missing and why? And you can kind of work backwards. And then you can say, is it the right time? And do I have the right people in place to add conversational intelligence? But your window's closing to where you're going to this to be a nice to have to this to be a must. And so you just have to be aware that you will have to select one of these technologies. Now, one of the giants is going to win. Is it Gong? Is it Outreach? Is it SalesLoft? Is it which company? And then which one's going to gobble up the competition? So just like we saw with Microsoft and Google, right? Like we're on Microsoft right now on LinkedIn. They gobble up everything, right? It's the same premise. There
It's a
will
space
be
race, bro.
it is. It is. And like when you look at CRMs and you look at sophistication, you have HubSpot, you have Salesforce. The rest of them aren't even in discussion. So if you're using something outside of those two architectures, I'm sorry, but you're going to lose. You're going to lose. Microsoft
Yeah.
Dynamics, it's great ERP, but it doesn't work well as a sales engine. And for the most part, unless you spend millions on customization. And same with Oracle's NetSuite. That's what we found in mid-market business. Now, large enterprise, there's a whole different stories there. But when we're talking small and mid-market, that's what we've seen. So HubSpot and Salesforce really fit in those realms. And it's going to be a crazy space race. It's going to be a crazy space race between these companies. And who's going to win is who can innovate, who can adapt, who allows people to develop. Like we've seen free sourcing, like even ChatGPT was supposed to be free forever, not profit, things like that. We found that even with Linux development back in the past, that this allowed things to go quickly. I think companies that have more open, innovative platforms for you to plug in apps, for you to work with them, will be the winners because it's always been community that drives things, like how Google Maps was built, right? And how these different things happen. It's really exciting to see where the world is moving, but it's selecting what ecosystems you believe in and looking at leaderships of companies, looking at directions, listen to speeches and things. Obviously, you guys know by our profiles, we've hung our hat with HubSpot. So obviously we've made our decision, but it doesn't mean those other companies aren't good. Like, of course, Salesforce is an amazing company. NetSuite's an amazing company. Microsoft's an amazing company. And will they compete at the highest levels? They will. But it's just which one are you willing to do in the short term that you can understand? And we find that we're simple farm kids, right? And we grew up that way, but we can understand HubSpot in short order, but it takes a long time to understand the other architectures. So you need something that's engaging and pivotal. And that's how AI takes hold, is when people start to use it. If people don't know actually how to use and engage in a system, what happens is you never get the frequency that you want because they're not using it. They're going to go back to their old habits. So why spend hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're not going to get engagement? And that's the big thing. To stay competitive with AI, it actually has to be used. And here's what's happening. A lot of the older salespeople pulling back. Hey, this is too much for me. I'm going to check out in 6-7 years. I just want to hold my relationships, things like that. And you're going to have to challenge it because it's not going to be able to happen in most industries. You will get interrupted. So how do you lead a horse to water and make them drink? That's the proverbial thing that we face day to day, right? And it's not wrong. It's just the speed of change. It's like just in a few years, truck drivers are going to be replaced by automatic trucks. We know that. We know that disruption is coming. We just know. We already see the trucks driving on the road from the Budweiser factory. We've seen these things. So it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And what comes next? The same thing in sales. We're going to have to adapt or die. And that's a hard thing to cope with, right? And in
Especially when you're
sales,
comfortable, right? When you're comfortable, then you don't feel that need. You don't feel that burn to change, right? And that's when you get hit the hardest. I mean, you look at Blockbuster and all those folks, right, that got disrupted very badly. Taxi industry, whatever, name it. They all were comfortable.
yeah, they're all comfortable, and you saw exactly what happened. Are there still taxis? Yeah. Do conventional people still use them? Yes, but boomers are leaving the market. Like they're retiring. And
Mhm.
that mass amount of wealth, and like this is one thing that we're not thinking about, but there's big issues going on in the world, and macro trends play a role in how AI will develop. And the first is the cost of capital has went up threefold. Why? Because boomers have removed their money from the market. They're stopping it working. They're retiring, putting it to funds, putting it into stocks, things like that. It's not an active investments. They don't want to make those anymore. They're pulling back. So the cost of capital. Can I get my data from a geopolitic guy called Zihan, and he goes through all this stuff. But there has been a threefold increase in the cost of capital in the last 5 years. And that's set to go to fivefold increase as all the boomers retire. And so with that being said, that means all these tech startups are going to have a hard time. And now we're re-incentivizing the reindustrialization of the United States. Most people know this, the Inflation Reduction Act, $10 trillion plus over the next 10 years invested in manufacturing and green technology and infrastructure. So if you want to know where the money's flowing, where AI can make the greatest impact is going to be a little bit more conventional and reinvigorating the industrial complex of the United States of America, which moves the entire world. So I'm excited about it. But if you're in that playground, you need to take this seriously. This is the year of massive change. I call it the year of chaos. I'm going to echo Patrick Bet David when he said, hey, 2024 is the year of chaos. Why? We have global order shifting. We have elections this year. There's 40 different countries having elections in 2024. That's $44 trillion in GDP that's having elections, 4.2 billion people. So that means 4.2 billion people, half the world's population, will face some sort of big change because of election. Now, where will you play in this? How will you track those trends? How are you going to see market shift? Right? We've already seen a mass push back to the United States of America. And if you guys like this kind of topic, like, share, go through this. We'll talk more about how macro trends are going to affect it. But diving into AI, how do I know all this? Well, Julio's taught me since he's come in. We set up marker trends on almost everything. So we get alerts like this is happening, this is happening, this correlates to this, this scores your lead higher because these things are happening. You can now track companies. You can track what they're saying, what they're doing. You can build that into your lead scoring program to identify opportunities in your CRMs. So no longer does a salesperson have to sit there and read 40 newspapers every morning like it used to be, to stay up like this is happening, this is going. You can be alerted and built intelligence in your CRM to track these things. And that's wild. The amount of enablement and automation, you can turn one salesperson into what was 3, 4. The economies of scale are huge. But here's the great thing, if you're a salesperson watching this, there's not enough of you. There's a lot of really bad salespeople, but there's very few high performers. And that's what I live in. I just love the fact that that's true. So, Julio, with these moves and these massive moves around the world, what are you most excited about? Are you excited about the reindustrialization and the manufacturing complex? Are you more excited about the new opportunities that are going to come with the ability to reschool a bunch of individuals and create more mind capacity? What is it for you that kind of stands out?
Yeah, for me, it's just I think just the reinvigoration of things, right? Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of it just be exported out over the past, decades, right? And we saw it leaving, and things have gone. I don't know. You could say south. You could say a lot of different things, but not necessarily so good. A lot of jobs were lost. People didn't know what to do. They were lost in a, I would say, rut when they didn't re-educate themselves, when things came about earlier with the technological revolution. Now we're seeing AI pick up, and hopefully more people are prepared for that because there's going to be a lot of shifts going on. But I'm excited for how we handle it. I'm excited for the innovation that's going to come out of it. That's why, because I know it's going to force innovation. I know it's going to force people to look at things and say, what are we going to do now? Look at this. What are we going to do now? Where are we going to divert our people? And if there are smart people out there, and I know there is, they're going to find ways to do that. And they're going to find ways to utilize the influx of people or the influx of time that people have and reallocate it into some areas where it's going to do some really cool things, and I don't know what those are yet, but I'm excited to find out. And that's what's exciting to me because we're going to see things rock, right? And things just change and things shift and new innovations come out. And for anyone who's into capitalism out there, like this is going to be a time that you're going to love to see because there's going to be opportunities coming out like crazy, and opportunities to invest, opportunities to build, opportunities to start a company when you might have been just previously sitting in your room downstairs previously, and now you have opportunity because everything's at your fingertips and you have the time to do it now. And that was the biggest thing, is people didn't have time. There was very few people who had the time to sit there and come up with a brilliant idea, or the time to put a business plan in play and actually make it happen. And now we're going to see some smart people find that time somehow and put some really cool ideas out in the market. So I'm just excited to see how that plays out, right? And of course, infrastructure and whatnot. But for me, I'm really big into just innovation and systems thinking, and I want to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, and so that's a really cool thing. Like, I just want to explore some great stories. So for example, Elon Musk at Tesla, SpaceX, he has programs internally that are AIs that learn how other people learn. And he's been able to teach his force that build these things more holistic thinking. How do you affect the entire chain? Like the old Peter Senge systems thinking from the 1990s, that's really the heart of a supply chain development process. But now he teaches all his engineers more holistic and learns how they think. And the AI takes that into effect, and he's able to teach people cross-departmentally using these AI universities that actually learn how someone learns and helps teach them. I've actually incorporated one with my son. It learns how he learns and is teaching him topics at rapid pace using that AI. So he's been able to jump a couple grade levels in just a few months in mathematics, and he was already ahead, but now he's been able to jump more because of this fundamental teaching process that Elon kind of pushed out to the education world, saying, hey, we're doing it internally like this, you guys should do it. And people started to adapt that to the private market in terms of education, which I think is going to be pivotal to how we learn. So what I'm excited about is this year will be the evolution of the personal AI. What is that? Well, we're already cyborgs. We carry these things around everywhere we go. That we got to admit to that. Like, who doesn't have a cell phone? Well, everyone does, and it's with you at all times. So whether this is inside you or whether it's right beside you, you're a little bit cyborg. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to get a personal AI assistant. This is the next evolution. And it's going to learn who you are, how you learn, what you do, and then be able to make very personalized suggestions to help you maximize who you are based on those structures. And that's a really exciting time coming in the world. We know, and these will be totally personal driven. And you're like, how will that happen? Well, large learning models in AI, and it's how you stay competitive. You have to understand how this actually works. You can put Chat GPT-4 unconnected to the internet. It's about 40 gigabytes. So you can put it on a personal device and it can learn you and build with you and do all those things. And the entire model, because it's a learning language model, right, is in one little device and it can learn with you. Most people think, oh, you got to have a million databases and all this. No, the whole point was to condense these language models and they were able to actually sophisticatedly learn inside small devices. And so you're going to have a personal one coming up. That's going to be the next evolution. I believe it's the next year, 2 years, but it will become a mainstay like Google became, or like Alexa became, when you're saying, do this, do that inside homes. And to stay competitive, we have to understand how are we going to equip our employees with things that can make these decisions hyper. Or they can say, hey, make a list of this, send out emails to this segment saying this to accomplish this, make it a chain of 7 emails, hit on these 4 points and trends. And these are the resources I want you to use. Bang. What would have taken a month to create a marketing campaign between multiple
Easily.
people is created in seconds. You vet it, send it, leads fly in. That sounds like alien, but
It's
this is
wild.
where
That's
we
wild.
are. In 12 months, we will have arrived, and that will be a commonplace piece. And so the push to stay competitive for you and your companies in AI, and this is my top belief, is that you must learn to integrate yourself with this technology. It's a question, if not surfing a wave, it's a question of you being left in the desert without water or food. It's so much, the whole ocean moves, right? So it's going to go over there and you're going to be left with nothing. And the idea of it is so strange because we've never faced this before. Typically, innovation moved in 100-year cycles almost. Then it moved to like 25. And we've seen that from the first airplane to a rocket going to space, right? But just think about regular aviation to commercial aviation and how short that jump was. Well, we're 100 factor or 1,000 factor faster. And we saw the internet take, what was it, 20 years to go global, 20 to 30 years to get to everybody. Now this will be a factor of 10 to 100 faster than this. So yeah, hold on to your butts is all I got to say. If you guys are listening and you got lots of comments and things, throw them down. Tell us what you're thinking, what you're excited about, what you're worried about, what topics, which people we should bring on here to
Mhm.
enlighten some conversations. Because the whole thing is we work with like mid-market companies across the board, and we want to make sure that we can keep small and mid-business alive. Because one of the big things is if you don't have the power to move and the speed to move right now, you're going to get gobbled up or you're just going to fail. It's one of the two. And that's scary for a lot of people, but it should be exciting. If you're a capitalist, it should be exciting times because you're going to be more well equipped to succeed than you've ever been before. But you just got to be ready to really take the slings and arrows of this new era. So Julia, with that being said, when we're looking at this shift to a fractional management base, and we're looking at how to make the most of that, given these AI technologies are going to erupt, when would you kind of consider adding that right advice to your team, adding that person who can advise at this level inside of your mix? Like when are kind of those catalyst reaction points that you see to call upon an organization like ours or any fractional management one, whether you need CFOs out there and things, just great companies. When are you looking for that outside advice?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of things going on there, right? Like you might be a founder led. company, right? And you don't have the time to do that. Like, let's face it, you'd like to be there and put all your time into your people and help them grow, but founder-led companies or founder-led sales companies are typically you're at the forefront, and you're selling, you're out there, and you're on every call, at least for the first couple years. And after that, who knows? But during that time period, it's critical that you sell, and there's just no chance that you're going to be able to give your time to at least in the amount that everybody wants it, at least, right? And they need something. So at that stage, I might got to consider bringing it somebody on, because as you said before, like, now we can use AI to be trained in your image, essentially, right? With your talking points or your answers, and now you can almost, so to speak, clone yourself, versus going out and spending 80K or 100K on a sales manager who may not align with you, might end up leaving, might end up doing a bad job, who knows? But there's just all these variables there, right? And why would you not take the safe path when like, this is proven, it's data driven, and there's going to be no possibility of it leaving you. As long as you got your credit card plugged in, you're going to be okay, right? So all good there. And a number of other things too, right? So there's also going to be points where you might have tried something. You might have brought somebody on with the hopes of doing business as usual, and it failed. It wasn't good. It wasn't what you thought it was. You didn't get your revenue targets. You didn't grow your team as fast as you wanted to. And now all of a sudden, that didn't work. What do you do next, right? Do you hire someone else again on a whim and hope it works again? Or do you go a different direction and try something that, again, is new, but it's tried, tested, and true as far as I'm concerned at the early stages? Because we know that it can give good coaching. We know that it can analyze calls, do pretty much everything a sales manager can do. So there's those trigger points, right? It's whether you don't have enough time and you're a founder led sales organization. Good way to break in and find time with your team and then give a little bit of yourself to them without having to give your time and still go out and do what you got to do. And again, there's those folks that are going to experience the problems where they try something and it doesn't work out, and the next option is do it again, or jump onto the train. Or I guess the last one would be in situations where you haven't really done anything and you're sitting pat. And I think that's probably a good scenario to be in to make the right decision on just going right directly into AI as you're growing. A small company going through those early stages, right? Going from early stage, trying to kind of settle out and put a team together that's going to be around, it's going to be a foundation, it's going to be stable. And as you're doing that, maybe that's the right time to say, hey, let's look at some of these roles and say, who can we put what can we put in as far as AI goes to supplement some of the people, and maybe spend that money on something, not better. I'm not going to say better, but something different, and something that's going to provide growth in another area, and let AI do its thing. Because right now we know that it can work in this area for sure. And as you mentioned earlier, you don't need the people aspect so much. You do need to coach. You need to be there. You need to give the human piece, right? Someone can do that, right? But let's not worry about people who are data driven anymore in that role. Like, they don't have to be. You don't have to comb the faces of the earth and go on LinkedIn for months and months and months to find the right person who's going to bring both of those things to the table. Now you just got to find somebody who's going to come in. Maybe it's a dual role. Maybe they're doing something else, but they can do the raw and get everyone fired up. And then your data is where, left to the AI, or whatever scenario you want to create. So I think those pieces are things I see, that really say, hey, it might be time to think about an AI driven solution, and work it in. And the great thing is, you can't integrate your sales manager with your technology. The good thing is you can integrate AI with technology and share the information that's there, report the data perhaps from a sales call directly to a CRM, to whatever outside of that. So now you have just something that's just built to scale and built to be a beast, versus again, running amok and wasting time and energy. So yeah, good times.
Yeah, so there's lots to build off of there. One thing that I think it's going to make the difference for most small and mid-sized companies is having an agile foundation. And what I mean by that is having a CRM or ERP built out that can quickly make decisions, move, make a difference in your business at a high rate. And what I'm finding is that most people are even though they're small, they're too slow to move, if that makes sense. They're acting like a big corporation, or they do the Canadian thing. Frustrating. Okay. I'm Canadian and I just detest this. You make decisions by consensus. at every stage. You got to have 85 people involved in a decision, and everything has to line up, and you take 6 months. We'll get over it, Canada. It's not going to work anymore. So if you're watching this from Canada, I'm pointing at you. I'm Canadian. I can say this. You're too slow. Your American friends make decisions 10 times faster. That's why we love working in the States. American friends, you listen to this, we love you. The whole idea around it is if you don't move quick and you're not agile, you fail. So you have to have an agile foundation, and to build that in, you need the right system. And that's what we come across all the time. Well, I don't know what to do. So do something. Evaluate your options. Get busy. This boat does not wait for you. This rocket ship does not wait for you. This next level. And I just want to leave everybody with this today. You've heard us speak. I want you to throw comments. I want you to repost, like, share some things, counteract us. Tell us where you think things are going. We'd love to hear your comments. It's how we grow together. None of us have the perfect answers. All we can do is go off theory of the smartest people that we get to listen to and know and share ideas with. And this community of growth and development that we're trying to build at Set to Close to be able to correlate and grow small and mid-sized business across the world is this is the reason we want people to have that choice instead of just slaving away for the big corporate thing that you have to do all your life. Because we've seen that. We've seen where this heads, right? Where corporatocracies get built out. Japan, South Korea. These are two places. If you guys ask how those economies work, they're very much like that. And so we want to keep small business, medium business alive in North America. That's a big premise to us. So share your thoughts. Let us know how you're going to stay competitive, why you're going to stay competitive that way. If you're as passionate about growing North American manufacturing and distribution as we are, jump in this. Tell us how you like the Inflation Reduction Act. It's going to be great for manufacturing. So we're really excited about that. You may not like policies and things, but it's an investment that the dollars are going to come in, right? We've been kind of beat up by China for a generation because they were investing trillions of dollars. Well, we were investing nothing. I say we, like I'm part of the United States or something, but if the United States wasn't investing anything in manufacturing. And just to give you guys hope, there's been more investment in manufacturing in the United States in the last 18 months than there was in the previous 30 years. And so if that doesn't get you guys exciting, I don't know what is. America has the brightest future of any country in the world right now. So get off the bench, get into AI, get competitive, be part of this beautiful capitalist experience that we get to build between our companies. And if you guys need help with your company, you can reach out to us. We're happy to help. If not, we'll point you in the direction of someone who can help you. I'm Jordan Rouse. It's been awesome to spend time with you. This is Julio, and we're signing off. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. What's the next topic, Julio? Do you have it on top of mind? Or we'll feed him that later.
Yep, we'll feed them that later. We'll use AI to let us know what's trending. I think that we'll go with that.
Yeah, so will be some cyborg generated content coming out later. Guys, this is all real. We look forward to it, and we'll talk about your questions on the next one. Talk soon.